So I'm very interested in your background as, I'm seeing a lot of advertising work there and culinary arts. And I'm wondering how those things might have influenced your design perspective and running a jewelry business.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that it's really influenced me as a human being, those different career choices that I've made in the past that I've been on. Advertising for me, I was a creative director and an art director, and my whole job was to communicate my ideas visually and come up with an idea and then be able to really explain it to people in a very clean and concise way. And I think that's really served me well in the jewelry world because again, I'm like coming up with these designs. I'm not the actual bench jeweler who makes them. So I have to be able to clearly communicate visually what it is that I want. And I feel like I had a head start on that because of this 15-year career in advertising, where that's like every day, that's what I did. So that was great. And then culinary, it's another one where you have this set of ingredients that you're working with, right? In the culinary world, it's like you got your proteins and you got your grains and you got all this stuff, and the way you put it together is what makes it magical. When you're a chef or you're somebody who's, you know, using food as a way of communicating, and I feel like that's the same in jewelry. We all are working with precious metals, gemstones. The materials are the same. It's how we remix them and do it in our way that makes them special.
Yeah, let's go. How you started that was saying, it was really about storytelling. And I wonder when you're trying to communicate those ideas, is it like when you're trying to communicate to the actual producer, the manufacturer, is it like literally I need a line here versus telling the story so they can kind of get where you're coming from? Or how literal is it?
It depends on the project. I do a few different things. I'm very computer literate, having been in the advertising and kind of graphic design space for so long. So sometimes I'll make things in Illustrator and I'll make them down to the millimeter. So it's a 2D like rendering of the object that I want, but I'll be like, in the end, I want this to be 25 millimeters. I want this stone to be 1 millimeter, and I want this pattern to be this. I'm very pattern driven in my work, so there's a lot of precision. But then sometimes I want to evoke more of a feeling, and so I sketch. And I think when I, instead of being, a flat, very computer rendered thing, if I can actually sketch the item, if it's something that should have more of a vibe, if you will, I think that really helps. And sometimes I do a combination of both. It's just very product or project dependent.
Yeah, speaking of Illustrator, I wonder how technology has influenced your design process. To your point, sketching something is a lot different than just, a flat illustration. But has that lended more, input into the design?
I think it has, and I think it's something that makes me unique as a designer, just having that sort of fluency in Illustrator. It's not, I don't think Illustrator is a very traditional jewelry design program, but it's what I know. So I use what I know to make my things. And I don't come at the jewelry world from like, a family business that I was a part of or all this like heritage in the jewelry world. I'm coming at it as a designer and using the tools that I know to influence that. And I think I've had a lot of positive feedback that my work is very identifiable. And I think part of what might make that true is because I'm able to do intricate designs because I have the technology and the know-how how to use that to help me really hone in and make some very specific, very intricate patterns and things possible in my work.
Yeah, so I came up in the music business, and I used to talk to a lot of producers who advised that they treated their production or songwriting like a job. So
Mhm.
9 to 5, whatever their time is, like they go to work like everybody else. But they had to treat it that way instead of just something that they just do when they caught a feeling or caught a vibe. And I wonder like how you structure your life to sit down and do work. Is it, hey, I'm just going about my day and I got inspired by something, or hey, I'm sitting down from 12 to 6 and I'm going to draw?
You know, That's also very dependent on the time and the space and where my head is. Sometimes I'm just like, an idea will come to me and I'm like, I need to get this on paper. I'm so excited about this. I need to stop everything and get this down. Other times I know there's a deadline looming and I don't really have a choice. And I have like, I've got to get, we're operating in that space these days. We have a
Yeah.
big deadline looming. I'm launching a new collection this summer that I really need to like finalize. So it really depends, Inspiration strikes everywhere, and I'm not limited to when I can put out a new piece of jewelry. So if I really fall in love with an idea and I'm like, I think this just needs to hit and be out there, I can do an independent release and not have it attached to any sort of a, showroom market or a planned date or anything. I have that flexibility and that freedom because I have an audience that is interested in that stuff. So it's there's all I come at it from all the different ways.
How do you know when a design is done?
Great question. It's a feeling. And I don't know if a design is ever truly done. And trust me, I've had some designs where I make it, I launched it and put it out in the world. And a year later, maybe it's a one of a kind and I didn't sell it. I last year I did this. I took the piece back. I sort of changed a couple things about it. I reoriented it. I like put it on a different necklace and I did some stuff and it immediately sold. So the thing that's kind of cool about jewelry is there are ways that you can keep manipulating designs. Obviously, if it sells, it's out the door. And there are some pieces that I make that are meant for production, meaning they are repeatable items that a store could buy and all my wholesalers are able to buy. And so those things I try not to change too much because money goes into like photographing them and marketing them and all this stuff. But when it's a one of a kind piece, I think it's done when I have this feeling like I love this, it feels good, but I don't put it past me to take it back if I see something that I want to change later.
Yeah. And I'm sure you know other designers who have beautiful work but haven't even come close to the level of success you and others have. And I would imagine that a lot of that has to do with brand. It's not just the product, but it's the story that coincides with it, positioning and these things. What have you seen work to elevate your brand where others might not have found that same success?
I attribute a lot of my success to joining a showroom at the very beginning of my career, which a showroom and my showroom, the showroom that I'm with is called For Future Reference. And it is a showroom that specializes in independent jewelry designers. And they handle my product PR and they handle my wholesale business. And they have a lot of connections in the jewelry industry. My friend Randy Malofsky is the founder of the showroom. I went to her when I decided I wanted to start making jewelry, and I'm like, hey, this is career number 3. I don't have like years and years and years. I got to like start, getting this thing off the ground and making it successful as soon as I possibly can. She's like, set your expectations though. But I really leveraged having a showroom and having their contacts to help me gain traction in the industry and get people to take me seriously as a person who had nothing to do with jewelry. That really helped me. And I continue to work with them, even though, some people grow out of their showroom. I don't know that I ever will because I just like the partnership of the showroom. And we continue to come up with interesting ways together to um, market the jewelry, do interesting collaborations, different things like that. So I think that really helped give me a leg up where if you're coming at this as like, I have this idea, if a tree falls in the forest, does anyone hear it? It's that kind of thing. It's like they were able to really amplify me from the very beginning.
Yeah. And, we've seen this Amazonification of sales and retail over the last decade or more. And luxury shoppers has held on to some extent. People want to get to know, buy, and touch and feel in person, have that in-person experience. But luxury buyers are increasingly, shopping online. And I wonder what role e-commerce has played for more luxury brands like yourself to help you grow your business and how you've been intentional in that.
It's been interesting. What I feel about all of that is that it's constantly changing. Like you said, luxury is interesting. People kind of can adopt certain ways of doing things. I do think jewelry is a unique space where people are really looking for connection. These are items that typically are heirloom or that they're planning to have in their lives for a very long time. And I'm finding, again, I'm about 8 years in, and I'm finally starting to really understand how important personal connection is to people, especially when they're coming to buy something like this. So, we do utilize online sales. I have a website, but I also opened a store last year, and I'll tell you this: I've noticed since I opened the store that my web sales have gone down, and I think it's because people take the time and effort to come to the store and have that connection. Touching jewelry makes a big difference. The weight of the jewelry, the way it feels on your body. So I think we're kind of a unique part of the luxury industry that really begs for some in-person time. But I also just launched a charity effort to help out with the fires in LA, and people were buying stuff basically that I was promoting on Instagram, not having touched it because I didn't have one for them to touch. I did an auction as soon as that thing went to the person who won it. It was gone, but then I opened it up for other people to buy, and they trusted me enough to buy it, without touching it. So it depends on the case.
Yeah. In my YouTube feed, I've had these uh, things pop up more recently about how exclusivity in some luxury brands are very prevalent. You think about Hermes, like you think about a Rolex store, like you go and you can't buy a Rolex in a Rolex store. And I
Yes,
wonder,
totally.
I wonder like how this stuff makes sense and how do you balance exclusivity with accessibility, needing like, maybe Rolex can get away with that. Maybe that's just, positioning that they say, and there's other ways to buy it. I don't know. But how does this work when you're trying to balance exclusivity with luxury? And because obviously you don't want everybody to have it if it's luxury, but accessibility also matters because you had a business to run.
Yeah, it's a juggle. I think the way I try to balance it is again by having some products that are truly one of a kind. So only one of them will ever exist. And generally speaking, that's because of a special gemstone that I've used where each gemstone over a specific scale can become very unique. So for those people who are like, I want to have something that no one else has, we can do that. But then, I also, part of my brand ethos, I think, is to make fine jewelry accessible in a different kind of way, like where I'm like, pile it on, wear it every day. There's kind of an accessibility vibe to my brand that I want to honor. So I make price point pieces that people can get that are not one of a kind, and they're, sub $1,000, or $1,000, $2,000, and you can get into the brand at a level that's more accessible, if you will. But then I've also done some limited edition pieces. Like I did a collaboration with the artist Ashley Longshore, who's a friend of mine, and we did a press for champagne ring that's really fun. And we're like, let's cap this at 20 so the people that are fans of both of us can like have access to it. And it's like, but then it's not like everybody in the world's gonna have one too. So there's just different tactics for different products.
Yeah, you mentioned collabs, and I'm interested in how collabs with designers work. And so, is like the actual structure. Is this us saying, "Hey, um, option A, like, hey, I'm going to pay you to come and let's do this thing together, and here's the revenue exchange between us," or is this we're going to do this split on whatever we get? Like, how do on paper and in function collabs work?
It's different for every person. So every brand is unique. And like, even with Ashley, I consider her a friend and she also is a brand. So we had a meeting with her team and we came up with, what were we both comfortable with? And we really hit it from a business standpoint. It's like we're buddies and we'll go out, we could, have some drinks together and that's a whole other thing. But we took this very seriously and had some very serious business conversations about it. I also collaborate with the Caviar Company, which is a local to me female run caviar brand. They distribute nationally though. It's quite wonderful caviar. But we also had our meeting and we discussed how we would work together as brands. And those were two very different conversations from two very different brands that I want to work with. But I will say, so far in the collaboration space, I've only really done them with people that I know and trust and like because I want it to be, you know, an authentic collaboration where it's people and products that I stand by and love. So that's the common ground on both of those.
Yeah, but let's go a level deeper on that. So I get, some of the creative, like we may bounce ideas off of each other and,
Mm-hmm.
then ultimately come up with this product that we're both, a fan of releasing. But like, how do splits work? Is it say, okay, Lauren is, taking 50% and this band over here is taking 50? Like, how do you decipher who's doing what and how does the split work? And you can give an
So
example. It
for
doesn't have to be
me,
real, but it can
yeah,
be.
yeah, no, like a good example of this is typically all the collabs I've done, there's jewelry involved. And so I'm responsible for making that jewelry and paying for those raw materials, if you will. So for me, the way that collabs have worked is that I need to be able to pay myself back for that investment and then split profits after that. Does that make sense?
That makes
So
sense.
if both of our names are on it, it's like I think both parties are entitled to a split thing, but I also have costs to cover because I'm usually the one manufacturing the item.
Okay. There's these two quotes I found from you that I'd like to repeat to you, and I want to get your take and go a little bit harder. And so there's one you said, I do consider myself a big muse for the work. To me, realness is not asking, what do I think someone is going to buy? The question is about what I think is interesting. What do I like? If it's something I truly love, maybe someone else will love it too. I'd rather come from the heart than from a place of pure profit. You remember saying that?
Yep.
All right, this
It's
here.
interesting. I don't think I owned a store back in those days.
Well, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that. So the second part is this other quote you said. It has not been the thing that I thought about, if you will. I did not come into this thing thinking like, wow, this is a competitive industry. How am I going to do it? I'm just starting to make jewelry. I was just starting to make jewelry. I made jewelry that made me happy. Then I decided to change and to do more fine jewelry. I really wanted to find a way to make it profitable so that I could keep doing it. I was not trying to seek out a spot in the fashion industry. That happened naturally because people responded to the word. So I get where you come from. Like I didn't have a storefront then. I didn't have real bills to pay and etc. But I want to find this balance between creative work and being able to keep doing it, which means you got to make money. Like, how have you found the balance between being true to Lauren's creative perspective and, yo, we got a bill that's going to need to get paid in a couple of days here?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So I've always thought of myself as a creative, and my creative perspective is very important. I'm starting to finally embrace the fact and not feel like a total imposter that I am also a business person. So this is a new phase of life that I'm entering. Um, One thing I will say though that has also taken me time to understand is I think I have really good instincts, and I think I have good instincts about what to make. Not everything is a success, and not everything's flying off the shelves. Don't get me wrong, but I think what's made the brand a success and the success that it is now is that I surprise people and I do things that aren't completely traditional in the space of fine jewelry.
What might be surprising about how technology and even AI might be disrupting and or impacting your industry and your work?
You know, I feel like I personally have not hit up against AI that much yet. I'm not looking forward to it because I think
Yeah.
to me, what AI is going to create is this very ubiquitous sort of everything feeling inauthentic and not the same. I don't know. I'm not super excited about it yet. Maybe someone will prove to me a way to get excited about it, but I'm not quite there. But technology, I think, is amazing, and I think technology. There's a lot of different ways that you can make jewelry. Some of it, like I said, is done by people who sit on a bench and literally hand make it. We work with people like that. We also, there's printing technology in jewelry. There's like all kinds of ways. If I have a person who wants to do a custom project with me and they want to make an engagement ring, let's say, I can actually print a resin or a wax of that ring so that they can try it on and see what it feels like before we commit to spending money on gold. So there's just really cool stuff that can happen. And I think as, technology keeps getting formed, I'm excited to see how that can impact the form factor of jewelry. People are working in titanium more. You see alternate materials. Am I still there for you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. My computer's just acting very crazy. Sorry.
It's all good.
So speaking of technology, my computer is not my friend right now. Like, come on, technology. Is this like, I don't know, Mercury's in retrograde. I don't know what's happening. Anyway, but yeah, I personally am a fan of technology when it comes to form factor and what it can allow us to do. Because I really like to approach design in a not limiting myself from having an idea if I don't think it's possible, because maybe there's something new in technology that I don't even know that can help me make it possible. So
Yeah.
I design things and I come at it in a way where it's like, hey, I've not seen this before necessarily. And I have a really wonderful group of people that help me with my production. And they're like, oh, here she comes again with like this crazy idea. But I'm like, that's what makes it fun. And like, that's what's going to make it stand out. So we come at stuff all the time where we're like, we haven't seen it, but let's see if we can make it.
Yeah. You know, and we aren't necessarily mining diamonds and gems in domestically, and I wonder how has potentially technology made the effort to source ethically more transparent or more difficult?
I think it's made it more transparent because there are a lot of people like the lab grown diamond thing, let's say that, and that is definitely technology in the jewelry industry. There are a lot of consumers out there who are like all about these lab grown diamonds. And so the natural diamond world has to figure out how can they still stay relevant and, you know, create some, communicate to people in a way that like shows why natural diamonds are beautiful and special and why they aren't bad for the environment or why they aren't blood diamonds and all that sort of stuff. And traceability, another technology in the jewelry industry. The people at De Beers have done a lot of things like creating something called Tracker where they can put these like microscopic numbers on diamonds and you'll be able to follow its journey from the moment it leaves the earth to who does the final like faceting and polishing. And you can see that whole story and where that diamond came from. And I think that's going to be increasingly important because I personally still am a natural diamond person. I don't work with lab grown diamonds. I think it's detrimental to the economies of the places where the natural diamonds come from. I've been to Botswana. I've met the people. I've seen their practice. I know what's going into that and what all the good that production of diamonds has done for that country. And I think it's really special and I want to support that rather than supporting a lab somewhere where they're using a lot of energy to make these diamonds anyway. So, you know, I think the way that we're going to get consumers feeling comfortable around that is to be very transparent.
Yeah. What has been the most challenging thing about transitioning from an executive to a founder?
You know, I mean, again, I see myself as a creative person and I didn't see myself as a business person. So making that transition, because I would say 85% of what I do is run a business now and 15% is the creative, where in my old life, it was that I was the creative director and everything was creative. So I went from like 100% creative, not running a business at all, just being somebody who helped support the business with my skill set. So that's been the biggest transition, is like wrapping my head around running a business. But I also find it to be one of the most exciting parts about all of this. I really did not know that I had that in me. And I'm really, as the business keeps growing and aging and, you know, we've been in it longer, I'm really enjoying the process of like growing into that role.
Yeah, at 15%, I'm super interested in that because I was watching this, some designer I was watching, and he had grown to this scale of his name is on the label, and he's at the place now where there's some designs that go out that he never even sees, but his name is on the label. And I wonder how, if you're doing 85% work and 15% creative, what does that bridge look like to where Lauren scales to the place to where there's designs coming out like your name is just on it?
I don't know that I'll ever be there because I think what makes this brand unique at this point, until I come up with like maybe this library that we can reference or whatever, I think I'm still my design is important to the brand and I am the only designer. So I guess that maybe says a thing about like how long my days are. 85 is business and 15 is creative. I am still the one who is designing every piece. And I think if you look at the library of work that I have produced, it's pretty prolific. I think I tend to come out with a lot of work. So maybe someday in the future, there'll be a way to hand off some of that responsibility. But I also do really enjoy that part. I think I'm trying to find more ways to bring in business help. And I do have some. I have a head of operations that's super helpful. Again, I have my showroom that I work with. I have a financial advisor. I have a production group that I contract with, and just different people who help me on the business side. But yeah, I'm not ready to let go of creative yet.
Yeah. How have you managed, being a business person now, but still care so deeply about social issues as you do when you may do a project and 100% of the proceeds go a specific way? And how do you balance both those things, trying to do
It's really important to me and just the energy that I have towards the work and the way I feel about what I'm doing. Because I'm working with really expensive materials. I'm selling to people who tend to have disposable income. And I think part of what makes that feel okay to me is that I can use this work to also give back and to create positive social impact. I also think, because I actually, again, I'm just doing this thing to help support the victims of the fires in Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Fire Department and World Central Kitchen. And there's all these things going on. And I am writing a lot of checks, if you will, or you know, using the credit card to send a lot of money to various charities right now, which is hard on the bank balance. But I do think it also, because it's coming from an authentic place and people can feel that, I think that in the long term, it sort of creates love around this business too, and around this brand, because people know that I actually am a human being who cares about other human beings. And I think that makes them feel good about supporting it and maybe spending, you know, on these high value pieces and supporting this brand, because we also do good work.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned some of the, you didn't mention names, but you talked about how some of your clients, you know, they have the means to do this stuff and it's not much for them to be able to participate. You know, how do you build these relationships with high profile clients? You know, Rihanna was mentioned as a client of yours and there's others. How are those relationships formed where it's nothing for them to put on, you know, one of your pieces and tell people about it?
I think a relationship that I'm really happy and proud of is my relationship to Kamala Harris. I'm friends with her niece, Mina. And so, again, it's personal and it's this connection that I connected with Mina, and Mina and I just connected as friends, but then she also likes my work. So she was gifting it to Kamala. So it's not like there was a lot of, you know, your office talks to my office and da, 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 da. It was more of a real engagement of, you know, friendship and, you know, shared values that got us to that place where she was wearing the jewelry. And I love that. You know, there's also, I do have a showroom and we are sending jewelry to celebrities to wear. And the way that the Rihanna thing came about was that, you know, her stylist called in some jewelry and I think she ended up liking something and wanting to keep it. But I was very far away from that transaction. I don't personally know her. We don't speak to each other, but I'm like thrilled. I'm like, yes, Riri, like get that jewelry. And I'm like, I'm happy to know she has a piece. But so there's different levels of it, you know, but for me, I've had celebrities DM me and just say like, hey, I like your work or whatever. And that makes me feel great. And sometimes I see it on people who I didn't even know had something. And maybe they're buying it through one of my retailers because they have a relationship with the store. Sometimes I just don't even know how it happens, but it's fun to see things on people for sure.
Yeah. And finally, I think there's many designers that I'm sure you've, you know, crossed paths with who ultimately, like, they never get out of the proverbial kitchen or garage of building their stuff. And it could be beautiful stuff, but they just never figure out a way to get out of just doing it from their living room. Like, what typically is missing there, and what advice would you give those folks who are trying to figure out how do they grow this hobby, this thing that we do from 5 to 9 into a business that can actually be the 9 to 5 and the 5 to 9?
I think you have to figure out how to connect into the industry. Jewelry is an industry and there are definitely like key players. I think there's different ways to connect into the industry. Again, my way to connect in was by having a showroom, but sometimes there are different initiatives within the industry where, you know, Natural Diamonds or De Beers or something will have a program where they're fostering young designers and bringing in talent. And then you have this end of the industry because you've participated in a program like that. I think that connection in is key. So how do you find a way in? I think when you are not connected into the industry and you're just like on Instagram and you're selling stuff and whatever, it can be beautiful, but without those contacts, it's really hard to be a big player in this world.